The Lost Art of Doing Nothing. Section 1, Permission to Pause, Part 1 of 2. Tonight, you are invited to do something that may feel strangely unfamiliar. You are invited to stop. Not to prepare for tomorrow, not to improve yourself, not to make better use of the next hour, and not to turn rest into another task that must be completed correctly. For a while, you do not need to become anything other than what you already are. Imagine that you have arrived at a small house on the edge of a quiet town. The road behind you is long, but you no longer need to think about where it begins. The road ahead is hidden by a bend and a row of old trees, but there is no need to wonder where it goes. The house has been left open for you. Inside, everything is simple. A wooden table, a comfortable chair, a kettle, a shelf of books, and a window looking toward a garden. There is no clock on the wall. No calendar has been placed on the table. No message waits beneath the door. You have not come here to finish a project or make an important decision. You have come only to experience one ordinary day without trying to fill every part of it. For many people, doing nothing sounds almost impossible. Even rest is often crowded with plans, screens, lists, conversations, and small anxieties. A quiet moment becomes a space to check something. A pause becomes an opportunity to catch up. Silence becomes a problem to solve. Yet human beings have always needed empty spaces in the day. Just as music needs silence between notes, and a room needs open space between its furniture. The Lost Art of Doing Nothing. Section 1, Permission to Pause, Part 1 of 2. Tonight, you are invited to do something that may feel strangely unfamiliar. You are invited to stop. Not to prepare for tomorrow, not to improve yourself, not to make better use of the next hour, and not to turn rest into another task that must be completed correctly. For a while, you do not need to become anything other than what you already are. Imagine that you have arrived at a small house on the edge of a quiet town. The road behind you is long, but you no longer need to think about where it began. The road ahead is hidden by a bend and a row of old trees, but there is no need to wonder where it goes. The house has been left open for you. Inside, everything is simple. A wooden table, a comfortable chair, a kettle, a shelf of books, and a window looking toward a garden. There is no clock on the wall. No calendar has been placed on the table. No message waits beneath the door. You have not come here to finish a project or make an important decision. You have come only to experience one ordinary day without trying to fill every part of it. For many people, doing nothing sounds almost impossible. Even rest is often crowded with plans, screens, lists, conversations, and small anxieties. A quiet moment becomes a space to check something. A pause becomes an opportunity to catch up. Silence becomes a problem to solve. Yet human beings have always needed empty spaces in the day. Just as music needs silence between notes, and a room needs open space between its furniture. Section 3, A Morning Without an Alarm, Part 1 of 2. You wake without knowing exactly what time it is. There has been no alarm, no sharp sound pulling you from sleep, no glowing screen showing a list of things already waiting. You simply notice that the room has become lighter. The bed is near an open window. A thin curtain moves inward and then settles back against the frame. Cool morning air reaches your face. It smells faintly of grass, old wood, and earth that held the night air for many hours. You remain beneath the blanket for a while, not because you are trying to return to sleep, but because there is no reason to move yet. This is a small but unusual freedom, to wake before deciding what the day must become. Normally, morning can feel like a door opening onto a crowded hallway. The mind begins naming obligations before the body has even left the bed. But here, there are no appointments. The morning is not the beginning of a race. It is simply light arriving in the room. You listen to the house. Somewhere in the wall, timber gives a quiet click as it warms. A bird lands briefly on the roof and scratches across a tile. The curtain lifts once more. Beyond that, there is almost nothing. You stretch one hand across the sheet and feel the cool fabric. Then you move your feet beneath the blanket. These small movements do not need to lead anywhere. They are only the body remembering itself after sleep. Section 4, A Morning Without an Alarm, Part 2 of 2. Eventually, you sit up. The floorboards are pale where morning light reaches them. A pair of slippers waits beside the bed, but you leave them where they are and place your bare feet on the floor. The wood is cool, smooth, and slightly uneven. You stand slowly, with no need to hurry past the first moments of wakefulness. At the washstand, a ceramic bowl holds fresh water. You dip your hands into it. The water is cold enough to sharpen your senses, but not unpleasant. You wash your face and dry it with a folded cloth. In the small mirror above the bowl, your reflection looks quieter than usual, as though it also understands that nothing is required. You dress in comfortable clothes and open the curtain fully. The garden appears below. A narrow path curves through tall grass toward an old pear tree. Drops of moisture cling to the leaves. Along the stone wall, climbing plants reach toward the morning sun. No one is waiting on the path. No vehicle passes on the road. The day has opened, but it has not asked you to enter quickly. You remain at the window, resting one hand on the wooden sill, and watch the light move slowly across the garden. There is nowhere else you need to be. You lift the bed only loosely, drawing the blanket toward the pillow without smoothing every crease. The room does not become untidy because one corner remains folded. There is something gentle in leaving a small imperfection behind. It reminds you that the morning is not an inspection, and that comfort does not depend on every surface appearing finished. Section 5, The Window and the Weather, Part 1 of 2. The sky above the garden is neither completely clear nor heavily clouded. Long pale clouds drift from west to east, changing shape so gradually that the change can hardly be seen. A strip of blue opens between them, disappears, and then returns farther away. You pull the chair closer to the window and sit down. The chair is old but comfortable. Its arms have been polished by years of hands resting in the same places. You lean back and look outside with no particular purpose. There is a forgotten kind of attention that asks nothing from what it observes. It does not measure, record, photograph, or explain. It does not try to turn a quiet view into useful information. It simply stays with what is there. A blackbird crosses the garden in 3 quick hops. It pauses near the path, tilts its head, and listens to something beneath the grass. A breeze moves through the pear tree, but only the upper branches respond. Near the wall, a spider's web holds a few silver drops. The entire garden seems busy in ways that do not feel good. You watch one cloud pass above the roof of a distant house. At first it resembles a long island. Then the front edge becomes thinner, while the center rises into a soft white tower. Within a few minutes, the shape has changed beyond recognition. Nothing dramatic has happened, and yet the sky is not the same. Section 6, The Window and the Weather, Part 2 of 2. Weather gives the mind something gentle to do. It changes without demanding a decision. A person can sit beside a window for a long time and remain part of the world without participating in its plans. Rain may arrive. Sunlight may return. Shadows may lengthen. The observer is allowed simply to notice. A faint patch of brightness moves across the lawn. It reaches the pear tree and makes the wet leaves shine. Then another cloud passes, and the color of the garden deepens again. The movement is slow enough that you can feel your breathing begin to match it. In the distance, a gate opens and closes. Someone walks along the road beyond the wall, hidden by the trees. Their footsteps are audible for a few moments, then fade. You do not wonder who they are or where they are going. The sound comes and goes like the shadow of a cloud. You rest your hands on the arms of the chair. There is no book in your lap, no cup to finish, no conversation to maintain. You are doing nothing except sitting near a window while morning crosses the garden. And for now, this is enough. A small fly reaches the window and walks along the glass. It repeatedly approaches the open edge, turns away, and tries another direction. You watch without helping. Eventually, it finds the space and disappears into the garden. The whole event takes less than a minute, but because you are not rushing, it has room to become visible. Section 7, The Chair by the Window, Part 1 of 2. The chair by the window has clearly occupied this place for a long time. The floor beneath its front legs is slightly lighter than the surrounding wood, protected from years of footsteps. A small cushion rests against the back, faded on the side that faces the sun. You begin to imagine the people who may have sat here before you. Perhaps someone once watched winter snow gather along the wall. Perhaps another person waited for a family member to return along the road. Someone may have read letters there, mended clothes, held a sleeping child, or simply watched the weather change. A good chair asks very little. It does not require a destination or explain what should happen next. It supports the body and allows time to pass. In a life filled with objects designed to increase speed, a chair remains one of the simplest invitations to stop. You adjust the cushion and settle deeper. The room is quiet enough that you can hear your own breath without trying. Inhale, pause, exhale. The rhythm continues by itself. You do not need to improve it. For a few moments, thoughts arrive in a familiar way. A forgotten task appears. A conversation from another day returns with a different answer. The mind offers a plan for next week, then a memory from years ago. Usually these thoughts might pull you toward action. Here, you let them come and go. Section 8, The Chair by the Window, Part 2 of 2. A thought does not become an obligation simply because it appears. It can be noticed without being followed, like a cart heard on a distant road. You listen until the sound fades, then return to the room. Morning light has reached the table now. Dust drifts through the bright air above it, rising and falling in movements too small to predict. You watch a single particle turn, flash briefly, and disappear into shadow. Then another takes its place. Time feels different when nothing is being measured. Without a clock, 10 minutes and half an hour can resemble one another. The body shifts when it needs to, the eyes rest. Attention wanders and returns. The day becomes less like a row of boxes and more like a broad field. Eventually, you stand, not because sitting has become uncomfortable, but because movement has returned naturally. You leave the chair exactly where it is, angled toward the garden. It will wait without impatience. Later, perhaps you will sit there again, or perhaps you will not. The chair does not mind. The chair creaks when you shift your weight. Instead of correcting your posture immediately, you allow the body to find its own comfortable arrangement. One ankle crosses the other. Your head rests against the cushion. Comfort arrives through several small adjustments rather than one perfect position, and the chair seems to remember each of them. Section 9T, That Takes Its Time, Part 1 of 2. In the kitchen, a small kettle rests on the stove. Beside it are a teapot, 2 plain cups, and a tin containing loose leaves. Nothing has been arranged for display. Each object has been used often enough to become familiar and unremarkable. You fill the kettle at the sink. Water strikes the metal bottom with a bright sound, then deepens as the kettle grows heavier. You place it on the stove and light the flame. After that, there is nothing to do but wait. Modern life often treats waiting as wasted time. A minute beside a kettle becomes a chance to check a message, read a headline, or complete some small task. But waiting once belonged naturally to daily life. Water needed time to heat. Bread needed time to rise. Roads required long hours. Letters crossed distances slowly. People learned to remain near unfinished things. You stand beside the stove and listen. At first, the kettle is silent. Then a faint movement begins inside it, almost too quiet to hear. Small bubbles form against the metal and release. The sound grows gradually, without any clear moment when stillness becomes boredom. Outside the kitchen window, a branch moves in the wind. A pale moth rests beneath the sill, hidden from the daylight. The room smells of dry tea leaves and cool stone. When the kettle begins to sing, you lift it from the flame. Steam rises around your hand. You warm the teapot with a little water, empty it, and add the leaves. Then you pour slowly. The water darkens as it surrounds them. Section 10, tea that takes its time, part 2 of 2. Again, there is waiting. You place the lid on the pot and sit at the table. No timer has been set. The tea will become ready in its own small interval. You watch steam escape from the spout and disappear. When you finally pour, the color is deep amber. You hold the cup with both hands, feeling warmth enter your fingers. The first sip is hotter than expected, so you wait again. There is no need to drink quickly. The tea changes as it cools. At first, it is mostly warmth and fragrance. Later, the taste becomes clearer. You notice a slight bitterness, then something softer beneath it. The cup lasts longer because nothing else competes with it. You drink by the window. Between sips, you look into the garden. Between glances, you rest your eyes. The tea does not accompany work, travel, or conversation. It is not fuel for the next activity. It is simply tea, and this is simply morning. When the cup is empty, you leave it on the table for a while. Even clearing it away can wait. A thin ring of tea remains inside the cup after the last sip. You turn the cup slightly and watch the amber trace catch the window light. Even this small remainder will dry and disappear if left alone. Not everything needs to be cleaned at the first possible moment. Some tasks can wait without becoming larger in the waiting. Section 11, The Forgotten Art of Waiting, part 1 of 2. Later in the morning, you step outside and sit on the low stone wall near the garden gate. The road beyond curves between hedges and disappears toward the town. Now and then, someone passes, but long spaces of quiet separate each traveler. You are not waiting for anyone. This makes the act of waiting feel different. There is no arrival to anticipate, no delay to measure, no reason to become impatient. You are simply present beside a road on which things sometimes appear. A cyclist passes first, moving slowly up the gentle hill. The wheels make a soft sound against the road. The rider raises one hand in greeting, and you return the gesture. A few minutes later, an older woman walks by carrying flowers wrapped in brown paper. She pauses to adjust the bundle, then continues toward the town. Between these small events, the road remains empty. You notice how quickly the mind tries to fill that emptiness. It invents questions, reviews old choices, and searches for something more interesting. Yet if you remain long enough, the emptiness becomes less uncomfortable. Waiting teaches the eyes to notice what speed conceals. Ants cross a crack in the stone wall. Grass bends beneath the weight of a beetle. A leaf turns over in the breeze, showing its paler underside. Far above, a bird circles without moving its wings. Section 12, The Forgotten Art of Waiting, Part 2 of 2. There were once many unavoidable pauses in an ordinary day. People waited at wells, gates, stations, ovens, workshops, and fields. They waited for weather, daylight, tides, seasons, visitors, and news. Waiting could be difficult. but it also created unplanned spaces in which the mind could loosen its grip. Now, even a few empty seconds can seem to demand occupation. Yet the nervous system still recognizes the old rhythm. It responds to repeated sounds, slow movement, and a horizon that does not change too quickly. You remain on the wall until your legs grow slightly stiff. No revelation arrives. No hidden answer appears. The value of the time does not depend on producing more. Before going back through the gate, you look once more along the empty road. A line of sunlight rests across it. The flowers carried by the woman are no longer visible. The cyclist has long since disappeared. Still, the road remains complete. It does not need constant traffic to justify its existence. Neither do you. A small breeze carries the scent of cut grass from somewhere beyond the hedge. You cannot see who is working or how much remains to be done. The scent arrives without the labor that created it, crossing the road and fading near the gate. You receive it without needing to know more. Section 13, A Walk Without a Destination, Part 1 of 2. Near midday, you decide to walk. You do not choose a destination. You simply close the garden gate behind you and turn toward the quieter side of the road. The absence of a destination changes the quality of each step. There is no need to estimate how long the journey will take or whether you are making good progress. You can slow down when something catches your attention and change direction without explanation. The road narrows beyond the last houses. Hedges rise on both sides, filled with small leaves and late flowers. A gap opens occasionally, revealing fields that extend toward a low line of hills. The sky remains bright but mild, with clouds moving steadily above you. You hear your footsteps clearly. One foot lands, the other follows. Gravel shifts beneath the soles. Your arms swing without instruction. Walking is one of the body's oldest patterns, simple enough to continue while the mind rests. At a fork in the road, you choose the smaller path because it is shaded. It passes beneath beech trees whose branches meet overhead. Fallen leaves from an earlier season remain caught in the roots. In the shade, the air is cooler and smells of bark and damp soil. You do not count your steps. You do not track distance. The walk is not exercise that must be recorded or improved. It is only movement through a landscape. Section 14, A Walk Without a Destination, Part 2 of 2. A wooden fence follows the path for a while. Beyond it, two horses graze in a field. One lifts its head and looks toward you, then returns to the grass. Near the corner of the fence, a cluster of white feathers lies beneath a bush, moved gently by the breeze. Thoughts still appear, but walking gives them room to spread out. A worry that felt solid indoors becomes less defined beneath the open sky. A decision that seemed urgent begins to resemble something that can wait until another day. Eventually, the path reaches a small stream crossed by a stone bridge. You stop in the center and look down at the water. It moves around dark rocks, carrying tiny leaves toward places you cannot see. You could continue, you could turn back. Both choices are equally acceptable. After a while, you follow the stream rather than the road. The day has no schedule, and so the path can be chosen by curiosity alone. At one point, you stop simply because the road has become beautiful. Sunlight lies across a patch of ferns, making each leaf appear separate from the others. There is no viewpoint sign, and no reason this place should be memorable. You look until the light changes, then continue without taking anything with you. Section 15, The Bench Beneath the Tree, Part 1 of 2. The stream leads to a meadow where an old wooden bench stands beneath a broad chestnut tree. The bench faces no monument or grand view. It looks across ordinary grass toward a distant line of trees. You sit down. The wood is warm where sunlight has reached it and cool beneath the shade. One end of the bench is slightly lower than the other, shaped by years of weather and use. A bench is a public form of permission. It says that a person may stop here without purchasing anything, proving anything, or explaining why. A bench creates a small room in the open air, a place where the body can be still while the world continues around it. You lean back and listen to the leaves above. Each movement is quiet, but together they create a broad, continuous sound. The chestnut tree does not become still between gusts. Smaller leaves tremble even when the larger branches appear motionless. In the meadow, insects move between flowers. Their work is constant, but it does not feel rushed. A butterfly crosses your view, disappears behind the tree, and returns from another direction. Farther away, a dog runs after a stick while its owner waits near the stream. No one asks you to come in. No one seems surprised that you are alone. You sit with your hands resting loosely in your lap. Section 16, The Bench Beneath the Tree, Part 2 of 2. At first you look outward. Later your gaze becomes softer. The meadow is still visible, but you are no longer examining it. Colors and shapes remain without meeting names. Green, gold, shadow, movement, sky. This kind of looking allows the mind to rest differently than sleep. You are awake, but not sharply focused. You are present, but not required to respond. The boundary between observing and daydreaming becomes gentle. Cloud covers the sun, and the temperature falls slightly. You notice the change on your hands before seeing it in the landscape. Then the cloud moves on, and warmth returns. You stay until the bench no longer feels like a place near the world. It becomes simply where you are. When you finally stand, the tree continues moving above the empty seat. The bench does not hold your absence against you. It waits for the next person, or for no one at all. A second person approaches the bench, but chooses the grass nearby instead. You exchange a small nod, and then return to your separate silences. Neither person is required to begin a conversation. Shared quiet can be a form of courtesy, a recognition that company does not always need to be filled with words. Section 17, Watching the World Continue, Part 1 of 2. From the meadow, a path turns gently toward the edge of town. You follow it until you reach a small square with a fountain at its center. Shops stand along three sides, and a cafe has placed a few tables beneath an awning. You choose a seat near the fountain and order nothing. The cafe is not crowded, and no one asks you to move. From here, you can watch the town continue with its ordinary day. A delivery van stops outside a bakery. Two people carry boxes through a side door. A child drags a stick along the iron fence, producing a soft repeating sound until a parent calls them back. A man in a blue shirt studies a handwritten list, crosses one item out, and enters a shop. None of these events requires your help. This may be one of the deepest forms of rest, recognizing that the world can continue without constant participation. People solve small problems, open doors, answer questions, and carry what needs to be carried. You are allowed to witness without intervening. The fountain sends water into a shallow stone basin. Wind changes the shape of the falling streams. Drops land beyond the edge and darken the pavement. Pigeons approach, drink, and retreat when someone passes too close. Across the square, a clock marks the hour, but you do not count the strikes. The sound spreads above the rooftops and fades. Time has been announced, but nothing in your day changes because of it. Section 18, Watching the World Continue, Part 2 of 2. You notice how often activity is mistaken for importance. A person moving quickly may feel purposeful, while a person sitting still may appear to be wasting time. Yet in this chair, both belong to the same scene. The worker carrying boxes and the observer beside the fountain are equally present beneath the same sky. A light breeze lifts a paper napkin from an empty table. It travels a short distance, catches against a chair leg, and stops. A server retrieves it and places a small metal weight on the remaining stack. The square does not offer a lesson. It offers movement, sound, and sunlight. The lesson, if there is one, comes from allowing those things to exist without needing to turn them into anything more. After a while, you rise and leave the chair. The fountain continues. The bakery door opens again. The pigeons return. The world carries on, and you feel relieved rather than forgot. A shopkeeper steps outside to turn a small sign in the window, then remains in the doorway for a moment longer than necessary. He looks across the square, folds his arms, and takes one slow breath before returning inside. Even within a working day, stillness appears in narrow openings, often unnoticed by everyone except another person who has stopped. Section 19. When boredom opens a door, part 1 of 2. On the way back toward the house, you take shelter in a small pavilion when a brief shower begins. Rain touches the roof in scattered taps, then grows into a steady pattern. The pavilion contains nothing except a bench and a notice board with several old papers pinned beneath lights. You have no book, no phone, and no conversation. For the first few minutes, the situation feels pleasantly quiet. Then a familiar restlessness appears. The mind asks how long the rain will last. It searches the notice board for something interesting. It considers leaving despite the weather. This is boredom, or the beginning of it. Boredom is often treated as an enemy, but it may also be a threshold. It appears when the usual sources of stimulation are absent, and the mind has not yet remembered how to create its own space. You remain on the bench. The rain becomes more detailed. Some drops strike the roof with a sharp sound. Others land on leaves, gravel, wood, or the surface of a puddle. Water gathers along the edge of the pavilion and falls in clear threads. Gradually, the need for something more begins to weaken. You notice a line of ants moving beneath the bench, carrying fragments toward a crack in the stone. You study the grain of the wooden post beside you. Someone carved 2 small initials into it many years ago, but weather has softened them until they are almost unreadable. Section 20. When boredom opens a door, part 2 of 2. Tune appears in your mind, not because you chose it, but because silence made room. Then a memory returns. A summer afternoon from long ago, a room with open windows, the sound of someone washing dishes. The memory is incomplete, but its atmosphere remains. Boredom has opened a door that constant entertainment keeps closed. Behind it are fragments, associations, and quiet forms of imagination. Nothing dramatic waits there. Only the mind returning to its own unhurried movement. The shower lightens. Rain still falls from the trees, though the sky has brightened. You could leave now, but you remain for another minute. That extra minute has no purpose. It is not needed for safety or comfort. It is simply yours. When you finally step out from the pavilion, the path shines beneath the clearing sky. The world looks newly washed, though it has been there all along. The smell after the shower is deeper than before. Wet dust, leaves, bark, and stone. You breathe it in and remember that weather changes not only what the world looks like, but how near it feels. Surfaces darken. Colors become heavier. The air seems to carry the garden closer to you. Section 21. The Slow Room of Memory, part 1 of 2. Back at the house, you wander into a small room beside the stairs. It contains a cabinet, a faded rug, and several framed photographs arranged on a shelf. The people in them are strangers to you, but their expressions are calm and familiar in the way old photographs often are. You lift one frame carefully. A family stands outside a house that may be the same house, though the garden appears younger. Their clothes belong to another decade. A child looks away from the camera, distracted by something beyond the edge of the picture. Photographs stop time, but memory does not. Memory changes each time it is visited. Details become brighter or disappear. Two separate days may blend together. A voice can remain long after the exact words are gone. You replace the frame and sit on the rug with your back against the wall. Without choosing to, you remember places from your own life. A hallway from childhood. The smell of a classroom after rain. A meal eaten at a table that no longer exists. The memories arrive quietly because nothing else is asking for attention. There is no need to organize them into a story. You do not have to decide what they mean. Some are pleasant, some uncertain, some touched by regret. They can rest beside one another without explanation. Section 22, The Slow Room of Memory, Part 2 of 2. Doing nothing often allows the past to surface, which may be one reason people avoid stillness. Activity keeps old wounds closed, yet memories do not always return to cause pain. Sometimes they simply wish to be acknowledged before fading again. You notice the texture of the rug beneath your hand. Red threads cross blue, worn pale in the center. The room smells faintly of paper and cedar wood. Afternoon light reaches only the upper wall, leaving the shelf in shadow. A photograph has tilted within one frame. You straighten it, then smile at the smallness of the gesture. No one asked you to do it. No record will be kept. It is simply a moment of care offered to a room of strangers. After a while, you stand and leave the photographs where they are. The past does not follow you into the hallway. It remains on the shelf, patient and incomplete. You close the door only halfway, allowing a strip of light to remain across the rug. On the lower shelf, a small wooden box contains buttons, ribbon, and several keys whose locks are no longer known. You do not sort them. You lift one key, feel its cool weight, and return it. Objects can survive their purposes and become quiet evidence that not every story reaches a clear conclusion. Section 23, Lunch Without Distraction, Part 1 of 2. In the kitchen, you prepare a simple lunch. Bread, cheese, sliced tomatoes, and an apple from a bowl near the window. There is no recipe to follow and no need to make the meal impressive. You carry the plate to the wooden table and sit down. Usually, eating can become the background to something else. People eat while reading, watching, traveling, answering, or planning. The body receives food while the mind remains elsewhere. Today, the meal has no companion except attention. You break the bread and notice the sound of the crust. The cheese is cool and slightly salty. The tomato has been warmed by the room and releases its scent when cut. Each thing is ordinary, but ordinariness becomes clearer when it is not hidden beneath distraction. You choose slowly, not as an exercise in discipline, but because there is nowhere to rush. The meal takes the time it takes. Between bites, you look through the kitchen window at the pear tree. A wasp circles the glass and then disappears toward the garden. A cloud passes over the sun. The shadow of the window frame shifts across the table. The apple is crisp and sharp. You eat half, then pause. Hunger has softened, and the remaining food can wait. You rest your hands on the table and listen to the quiet house. Section 24, Lunch Without Distraction, Part 2 of 2. There is a particular peace in meeting a simple need without adding anything to it. Hunger, food, satisfaction. No performance, no optimization, no judgment. When you finish, you wash the plate and knife. Water runs over your hands. You dry them and return the dishes to the shelf. The entire meal leaves almost no trace. This, too, is part of doing nothing, allowing an ordinary activity to remain ordinary. Not every meal must become an experience. Not every choice must express an identity. Some things can be small, useful, and complete. You leave the kitchen and notice that the afternoon has grown quieter. The road beyond the garden wall carries less traffic. Even the birds seem to have moved into shade. The house invites you toward its coolest room, where a sofa stands beside a closed fireplace. You follow without deciding what will happen there. You leave the final piece of bread on the plate for a few minutes before deciding whether you still want it. The pause allows appetite to answer more honestly than habit. Eventually, you eat it slowly, and the meal ends without either restraint or excess. Nothing has been calculated, yet the body has been heard. Section 25, The Quiet Hour, Part 1 of 2. The sofa is long enough to lie down on, though it was probably intended for sitting. You place a cushion beneath your head and stretch your legs along the worn fabric. Afternoon has reached its quietest point. The light outside is bright, but inside the room it is softened to a warm gray. The curtains move only slightly. Somewhere in the garden, a bee travels from flower to flower with a low, steady sound. You are not preparing to sleep, but sleep may come. This distinction matters less than it usually does. You close your eyes without setting an intention. At first, the mind continues speaking. It names things you might do later. It produces sentences, questions, and unfinished conversations. Then the thoughts become less organized. Images appear briefly and dissolve. A doorway, a river, a person walking away, a cup on a table. The body becomes heavier against the sofa. Your hands rest where they have fallen. Breathing slows. Perhaps you sleep for a few minutes. Perhaps you remain in the soft region between waking and sleep, where time loses its edges. The house continues around you. Wood warms, leaves shift. A distant vehicle passes. None of these sounds requires a response. Section 26, The Quiet Hour, Part 2 of 2. Rest that has not been earned can feel uncomfortable to people trained to measure worth through effort. Yet the body does not ask whether tiredness is justified before it repairs itself. The eyes close, muscles release, attention withdraws. You are allowed to rest before reaching a breaking point. You are allowed to stop while energy remains. Rest is not only an emergency measure, it is part of the rhythm that makes movement possible. When you open your eyes, the light has changed. A rectangle of sun lies on the carpet near the fireplace. You do not know how long you were still, and the uncertainty feels present. You remain on the sofa for another moment, listening to the return of clear thought. There is no sudden need to stand. Waking can be gradual, just as morning was. Eventually, you sit up and place your feet on the floor. The room looks unchanged, but you feel slightly farther from the noise you carried into the house. Nothing happened during the quiet hour. That is what made it valuable. When you stand after resting, you do not immediately search for renewed energy. Perhaps you feel refreshed. Perhaps you simply feel softer. Rest is not a machine that must return a predictable result. Its effect can be subtle, arriving later as patience, clearer attention, or the absence of tension you had forgotten was there. Section 27, Work, Worth, and Rest, Part 1 of 2. In the late afternoon, you return to the table by the window. A blank notebook lies there with a pencil beside it. You open to the first page, then leave it empty. The blank page resembles the day itself. It could hold a plan, a list, a sketch, or a record of everything you have noticed. But it does not need to hold anything. Many people learn early that work and worth are closely connected. Praise follows achievement. Rest follows completion. Time is divided into useful and wasted portions. Even leisure becomes a project, a skill to develop, a destination to reach, a body to improve, an experience to collect. Work can be meaningful. Effort can be satisfying. Making, repairing, teaching, growing, and caring are part of a good life. The problem begins when all time must prove its value through visible results. A field left barren may appear empty, yet beneath the surface it is recovering. A sleeping animal seems inactive, yet its body is restoring itself. A person sitting at a window may look unproductive, while attention, memory, and emotion quietly reorganize. You turn the pencil once between your fingers. It would be easy to write these thoughts down and transform them into an accomplishment. Instead, you place the pencil back on the table. Section 28, Work, and Rest, Part 2 of 2. The empty page remains open. It does not accuse you. Outside, a gardener walks along the far side of the wall carrying a rake. He pauses to look at the sky, then continues. A few leaves have begun to fall from the pear tree, though the season has not fully changed. You consider how different life might feel if rest were not treated as the opposite of living, but as one of its necessary forms. A pause would not need defense. Silence would not need to be filled. A day without achievement would not be a failure. These ideals do not have to become rules. The moment you turn rest into another standard, it becomes difficult again. There will be busy days, distracted days, and days when stopping is impossible. This quiet day does not demand that every day resemble it. It only reminds you that another rhythm exists. You close the notebook without writing a word. The blank page has done its work without being used. You run one finger lightly across the edge of the notebook. Paper makes a faint sound beneath the nail. The blank pages are not truly empty. They contain grain, weight, texture, and the possibility of marks. Possibility does not always need to become action. Sometimes it can remain possibility and still feel complete. Section 29, Hands at Rest, Part 1 of 2. You carry the chair from the window onto the small terrace behind the house. The garden has entered the golden part of afternoon. Light gathers along the edges of leaves and makes the stone path appear warmer than it is. You sit with your hands resting on your knees. For a while, you pay attention only to them. Hands are rarely still. They open doors, carry bags, wash cups, write messages, adjust clothing, prepare food, hold tools, and reach for objects before the mind has fully decided. Even during conversation, they move to explain what words cannot. Now they do nothing. You notice small lines across the knuckles and the faint rhythm of blood beneath the skin. One finger moves slightly, then settles. The hands do not need to be useful in order to belong to you. In another part of the garden, a spider repairs a web damaged by the morning breeze. Its movements are precise and continuous. Nearby, a leaf rests on the path without moving at all. Both belong equally to the afternoon. You turn your palms upward. The gesture resembles receiving, though nothing is placed there. Warm air touches the skin. A tiny seed, carried from somewhere above, lands near your wrist. You lift your hand and let the breeze take it again. Section 30, Hands at Rest, Part 2 of 2. Stillness often reveals how much tension the body carries without notice. You release your fingers, then your jaw, then your shoulders. Nothing dramatic changes, but the chair seems to support more of the weight. A distant bell marks another hour. Birds answer from the trees, though not because of the bell. Shadows lengthen across the grass. You think of all the things your hands have done, both remembered and forgotten. Some efforts were important. Others disappeared without recognition. The body does not keep a perfect account. It simply carries experience forward in strength, habit, and weariness. For these few minutes, there is nothing to hold and nothing to fix. Your hands rest open until the light begins to leave the terrace. Then you place them on the chair arms and stand. The day moves toward evening, and you move with it slowly. A line of sunlight moves across your palms as a branch sways above. For a moment, light and shadow divide each hand into changing shapes. You make no effort to hold the pattern still. It belongs to the wind and the leaves, and its beauty comes partly from the fact that it cannot be kept. Section 31, Listening to Small Sounds, Part 1 of 2. As the air cools, the garden becomes more audible. During the brighter hours, sight seemed to lead every other sense. Now, as shadows gather beneath the trees, sounds come forward. You walk to the far end of the garden and sit in the grass beside the stone wall. At first, you hear only the most obvious things. A car on the distant road, a bird calling from the hedge, the low movement of wind through leaves. Then smaller sounds separate themselves. A dry stem touches another stem. An insect moves beneath fallen leaves. Water drips once from the outdoor tap into a metal bucket. Somewhere in the house, a door shifts slightly in its frame. Silence is rarely the absence of sound. More often, it is the absence of interruption. Small sounds can exist without competing. They appear, occupy the air briefly, and disappear. You close your eyes. Without sight, distance becomes clearer. The bird is beyond the wall. The leaves are above and behind you. The bucket is near the kitchen door. A faint train moves across the valley, far enough away to become a continuous murmur. Listening without searching is another form of doing nothing. You do not identify every source or decide whether the sounds are present. You allow them to arrive. Section 32, Listening to Small Sounds, Part 2 of 2. A bee passes close to your ear and continues toward the flowers. The sudden nearness makes you open your eyes, but the garden remains calm. The bee has already vanished. The stone wall holds the day's remaining warmth against your back. Grass bends beneath your hands. The sky above the trees has begun to pale toward evening. In a busy place, attention protects itself by ignoring most of what it receives. Here, it can widen. The nervous system discovers that not every sound is a warning, and not every movement requires action. You breathe in as the wind rises, then breathe out as it settles. The garden seems to do the same. When you stand, you carry the quiet listening with you. The sounds do not stop, but they no longer feel separate in the silence. From a neighboring garden comes the quiet scrape of a chair being moved, followed by silence. Someone else may also be sitting down. You cannot see them, but the thought creates a gentle companionship. All through the town, people are pausing in rooms, gardens, doorways, and parked cars, each pause invisible to the others. Section 33, Clouds and Passing Thoughts, Part 1 of 2. A wooden gate at the back of the garden opens onto a small hill. You climb until the house is partly hidden below. At the top, the grass is short and soft, and the view extends across fields toward the distant town. You lie down and look at the sky. Clouds move in long layers. The highest are thin and bright. Lower clouds carry gray shadows beneath them. Some travel faster than others, creating the strange impression that the sky has several different currents. Thoughts resemble clouds in an obvious way, but the comparison remains useful because it is simple. They form, change, and pass. Some are light enough to ignore. Others darken the whole field of attention. None remain exactly as they first appeared. You notice a thought about the future. It contains a problem and several possible solutions. Instead of choosing one, you let the thought continue across the mind. Its edges become less clear. Another thought arrives from the past, bringing an old embarrassment. It too changes when you do not hold it in place. This is not the same as refusing responsibility. Decisions will still be made when their time comes. But not every thought requires an immediate meeting. The mind can produce suggestions without placing them on the calendar. Section 34, Clouds and Passing Thoughts, Part 2 of 2. Above you, one cloud divides into two. A bright opening appears between them, revealing a deeper blue. The shape lasts only a moment before the wind alters it. You feel the ground beneath your back. The earth is firm, the grass slightly cooler. A small insect climbs onto your sleeve and pauses near your elbow. You watch it change direction several times before leaving. The town is active in the distance. You can see roads, rooftops, and a faint line of smoke. From here, movement becomes quiet and small. You remain on the hill until the clouds begin to take on the softer colors of evening. Thoughts continue to appear, but they no longer seem like instructions. They are weather crossing an open sky. When you sit up, the horizon has turned pale gold. You brush a few blades of grass from your clothes and walk slowly back toward the gate. A bird crosses below the clouds, so far away that it appears almost motionless. Only by watching carefully do you see it progress from one side of the sky to the other. Distance turns effort into calm. What may be rapid wing beats become a smooth and silent passage. Section 35, Evening, without an agenda, Part 1 of 2. Evening enters the house gradually. The kitchen is still bright enough to see without a lamp, but the hallway has grown dim. The garden beyond the windows is losing detail. Leaves become shapes, then shadows. There is no evening plan. No reservation, program, or unfinished task waits to organize the remaining hours. You stand in the center of the room and let the next action choose itself. You open the back door and allow cooler air inside. Then you fold the blanket left on the sofa, not because it is necessary, but because your hands feel like making one small gesture with relief. In the kitchen, you slice bread and place a little soup in a pot. The meal warms slowly. You do not call it dinner or decide what time it should be eaten. When the soup begins to steam, you carry it to the table. Outside, a bat crosses the garden so quickly that you are not certain you saw it. A second follows, turning sharply above the pear tree. The first evening star appears over the roof. You eat with the window open. The day is cooling around you. Somewhere in town, dishes are being washed, curtains drawn, children called indoors, and doors locked. Thousands of small evenings are unfolding, each one ordinary and complete. Section 36, Evening, without an agenda, Part 2 of 2. After the meal, you leave the bowl in the sink and return to the terrace. The chair is still where you placed it earlier. You sit and watch the final light leave the wall. An agenda gives time a shape, but it can also make every hour feel like a container that must be filled. Without one, evening spreads naturally. There is no clear line between one activity and the next. Sitting becomes listening. Listening becomes remembering. Remembering becomes simple quiet. The first moth circles near the kitchen light. A cat moves along the top of the wall, pauses to look at you, and disappears into the neighboring garden. You stay outside until the air becomes cool enough to make you reach for a sweater. The movement marks the evening more clearly than any clock. Inside, the house waits in shadow. You step through the doorway and close it gently behind you. You notice that the house has become familiar within a single day. The location of the cups, the sound of the back door, the slight dip in the terrace step, each has entered memory without study. Attention gathers places gently when it is not forced to hurry through them. Section 37. The lamp comes on Part 1 of 2. You light a lamp in the sitting room. Its glow is smaller and softer than the daylight that has filled the house, but it is enough. The circle of light reaches the chair, the table, and part of the bookshelf. The corners of the room remain dim. A smaller light changes the way attention moves. During the day, the eyes travel outward toward distance. At night, they return to what is near. You choose a book from the shelf, but do not open it immediately. The cover is cloth, worn smooth at the edges. You hold it for a while, feeling its weight. Reading is available, but not required. You may open to the first page, read a paragraph, and stop. You may turn to the middle and let a few sentences pass without remembering them. The book does not have to be finished. You sit in the chair by the window. Outside, your reflection has replaced the garden and the glass. Behind it, one or two distant lights show through the darkness. The lamp makes a faint sound. The house answers with occasional clicks from cooling timber. A moth touches the outside of the window and disappears. Section 38, the lamp comes on part 2 of 2. You open the book and read slowly. The story begins in a place you do not know. A character enters a room. Rain is falling somewhere far from this house. After 2 pages, your attention drifts and you lower the book. There is no need to force concentration. The point of the evening is not to complete the chapter. You rest the open book on your lap and watch the lamplight along the page. Doing nothing does not always mean literal stillness. It can mean allowing an activity to remain free from demand. Reading without a target, walking without a route, drinking tea without working, sitting without waiting for a result. After a while, you close the book and place it on the table. The character remains in the unknown room, patient until another reader returns. You turn the lamp slightly lower. The circle of light contracts, and the room becomes quieter still. You decide not to turn on another lamp. One pool of light is enough. Objects outside can remain unseen until morning. There is relief in not needing to illuminate every corner, both in a room and in the mind. Some uncertainties become easier when allowed to stay in shadow for a while. Section 39, Nothing Left to Prove, Part 1 of 2. Night has fully settled around the house. You move through the rooms, checking the windows and drawing the curtains where the air has become cool. Each room seems simpler in darkness. The blank notebook remains on the table. The cup from morning has been washed. The chair stands near the window. Nothing important has been produced, completed, or achieved. And yet the day does not feel empty. You woke slowly. You walked fast. You drank tea, walked without a destination, sat beneath a tree, listened to rain, ate a simple meal, remembered old rooms, rested, and watched evening aloud. None of these moments can be displayed as evidence of success. They do not add to a resume, a collection, or a list. Their value was in being lived. Much of human effort is shaped by the need to prove something. Usefulness, intelligence, strength, discipline, belonging, progress. The need is understandable. People depend on one another, and work has consequences. But the need to prove can spread beyond its proper boundaries until even private time feels like an examination. Section 40, Nothing Left to Prove, Part 2 of 2. Here, no one is grading the day. The house has not measured your productivity. The garden has not compared you with anyone else. The sky accepted your attention without asking what you would do with it. You stand near the dark window and see only a faint outline of yourself. The reflection does not show your accomplishments or failures. It shows a person standing in a quiet room at the end of a quiet day. For this moment, that is a complete identity. Nothing remains to be demonstrated before you are allowed to sleep. No final task will make the day more worthy. No perfect thought needs to be found. You turn away from the window and leave the sitting room. Behind you, the lamp continues to glow on the table for another minute. Then you return, lower the flame, and let the room become dark. For a moment, you imagine explaining the day to someone. The description would sound almost too small. You sat, walked, ate, and rested. But experience does not become more real through an impressive summary. A quiet day may be difficult to describe precisely, because its value was not concentrated in events. It was spread through the spaces between them. Section 41, Preparing for Sleep, Part 1 of 2. Upstairs, the bedroom has cooled. The window remains slightly open, and the curtain moves in the night air. The bed has not been made perfectly, but the sheets are clean and the pillow is soft. You change slowly and place your clothes over the back of the chair. There is no need to prepare tomorrow's clothes or review tomorrow's plans. Morning will arrive whether or not it has been organized tonight. The washstand, you rinse your hands and face. The water feels warmer than it did at dawn, perhaps because your skin has cooled. You dry yourself and turn down the light. Before lying down, you stand once more at the window. The garden is mostly hidden, but the pear tree can still be seen against the sky. A few stars show between clouds. Somewhere beyond the wall, a night bird flies. The day has come full circle. You began at this window in early light, and now you return in darkness. Between those moments, very little happened by the usual standards. Yet time did not disappear. It waited. You close the curtain halfway and climb into bed. The mattress receives your weight. You adjust the pillow and pull the blanket over your shoulders. Section 42, Preparing for Sleep, Part 2 of 2. Sometimes, the mind becomes busiest just when the body is ready to sleep. It tries to recover the tasks that were ignored during the day. It suggests that rest must be postponed until everything has been considered. But thoughts can wait outside the room. Imagine placing each one gently in the hallway. The unfinished message, the future decision, the old conversation, the uncertain plan. They are not being discarded. They are simply not coming to bed with you. The house settles around you. A pipe clicks in the wall. Wind moves through the tree. The curtain lifts and falls. You do not need to make sleep happen. Sleep is not a performance. You can remain awake comfortably until it arrives in its own time. Your hands rest beside you. Your jaw softens. Your breathing finds a slower rhythm. The day required nothing from you, and now the night requires even less. You turn the pillow to its cooler side. This tiny comfort asks no philosophy and proves no principle. The body recognizes it immediately. A person can spend years searching for large forms of peace while small forms wait within reach. Cool fabric, a warm cup, a supported back, a room with enough air. Section 43, The World Can Wait, Part 1 of 2. The room grows quieter as your attention turns inward. The edges of objects become less distinct. The chair, the washstand, the curtain, and the pale window gradually belong more to darkness than to sight. Outside, the world continues. Roads remain under the stars. Trains cross distant valleys. Lights are switched off in houses and switched on in hospitals, stations, kitchens, and workshops. Some people are beginning their work while others are ending it. For a few hours, none of it needs your direction. The art of doing nothing is not the art of abandoning life. It is the art of stepping back far enough to remember that life is more than the things we make it do. It is the ability to leave a space unfilled, to allow a question to remain unanswered, and to trust a moment that produces no result. This art is easily lost because it leaves so little evidence. A completed task can be seen. An empty hour disappears. Yet the empty hour may be the place where the body recovered, where a feeling softened, where imagination returned, or where the mind remembered its natural pace. Section 44, The World Can Wait, Part 2 of 2. Today you practiced without trying to become skilled. You sat, walked, waited, watched, listened, ate, rested, and allowed time to pass. Nothing about the day needs to be repeated perfectly. Even the memory of it can fade. What matters now is only the permission that remains. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to be unreachable for a while. You are allowed to sleep before every problem is solved. The garden does not need you to watch it through the night. The chair will remain beside the window. The kettle will wait on the stove. The blank notebook will keep its empty page. Morning will return when it is ready. Until then, the world can wait beyond the walls of this quiet place. Let the final thoughts pass like clouds moving through darkness. Let the body become heavy beneath the blanket. Let the room hold what you no longer need to carry. There is nothing more to do. There is nowhere else to go. And for now, nothing is exactly enough. If sleep comes before the final words are finished, nothing will be missed. The story does not contain a conclusion you must carry into tomorrow. Its purpose has already been served by the slaying itself, by the moments when the tension loosened and the day beyond this room became less urgent.